Welcome back to another edition of Knowledge Gumbo Conversations. Um, we're getting close to Christmas and New Year's, and I hope everything is going well for everyone. That you're doing, you're getting the most out of everything that the season has to offer. So let's get started. As I've been starting the last few weeks, I want to impress and remind you that you are loved, you are kind, you are smart, you are important, you are necessary. There's pieces to the puzzle that only you can fit. Remember, you are definitely necessary. Let's kick off today's conversation. Hey, Gretchen, talking about the focus of last week's newsletter, Knowledge Gumbo newsletter. Mary Beatrice Davison Kenner, a mouthful, but she was an impressive inventor, and she came from a family of inventors. And up until the 21st century, she was the Black woman with the most patents, U.S. patents of 5. Um, and her main or first major patent came from improving the sanitary belt for those of you who are still ministrating, and for those of you who are thanking God that you're no longer ministrating. She created the first sanitary belt back in 1957, and the thing that gets me is that it was popular. A company wanted to buy it until they found out that she was a Black woman. And then they decided that they were no longer interested in purchasing her invention or rights to make the invention. And they just held out until the patent expired. And then a bunch of companies went and took over her design. She never made a penny for it. But the one thing I do admire about her is she never stopped inventing. She never let that deter her. She found places that had needs, and she filled it by creating something to solve that need or that issue or that problem. And I think that's what we need to do, is find a need and fill it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an invention. It could be a role that you play, whether it's in your community, it's in your church, it's even in your family. Find a need and fill it. Because that's also a key thing piece of advice that was given out by A.G. Gaston. He was an incredible businessman back in slavery time. Not slavery, take that back. Back during the civil rights era, he found needs and he filled it and became a multimillionaire. Back when that was unheard of. So I'm encouraging you to find spaces and places that need help and take the time out to help. Let's go to the next section.
Or let it slide.
Ooh, what do we have today for address it or let it slide? Someone says your faith is for people who need a crutch and can't handle life. Do you address it or do you let it slide? For the most part, for me, I just let it slide. Because usually people who make those kinds of statements, they're looking for an argument, they're looking for a fight. They're looking for a way to try to tear you down or make you second guess what you believe. But if you're rooted in your faith, you don't have anything to prove to anybody. Uh, I mean, if someone's saying that and that there's a niggling of doubt that's showing on their face, then I might say a little bit of something. But for the most part, usually when someone says your faith is a crutch and that you can't handle life, so you're putting off everything on some mythical God, I just let it slide because these people are looking for a fight or looking for an argument or they're looking for justification for why they hate or don't believe in a God or don't believe in God that they say that doesn't exist. And, usually my only question is, how can you hate or doubt something that doesn't exist? But when this came up, it also reminded me of a story I heard in a sermon by Dr. Jeremiah Wright, where he tells a story about him being in seminary, where they used to have these sack lunch lectures that these scholars would come in and present, and then you had an opportunity to ask questions afterwards. And he tells the time about this scholar who comes in and is proving that the resurrection of Jesus was a myth and saying that because the Black American religious experience is based on a relationship with the risen Lord, who in fact doesn't exist, American spirituality was nothing but mumbo jumbo. And when the scholar Tillich finishes his lecture, he asks, "Are there any questions?" And at first, no one says anything. It's so silent, you could hear a rat pee on cotton, as my grandma used to say. But Jeremiah Wright says that there was an old Black preacher who got up and he reached into his sack lunch. Remember, these are sack lunch lectures. And he pulls out an apple and he loudly, bites into the apple and starts munching. And he takes another bite and makes sure he's loud as he's munching. And then he looks at Tillich and says, "Was the apple I just ate bitter or sweet?" And Tillich responds, "I can't answer that question because I haven't tasted your apple." And then the preacher responds, "And neither have you tasted my Jesus." And for the crowd, that was game, set, match, over. And for me, that's a lot of how I deal, about my faith. I'm not going to argue about it. We can have a discussion if you're interested. I'm opening to hearing what people have to say. But when your intention is just to tear me down or attack me, ain't nobody got time for that. Because you don't know my experience, you haven't lived my experience, you don't know the things that I've gone through. So how would you know what my faith means to me? And I think that's applicable in a lot of different situations of people coming and attacking and they don't know because they haven't been in that situation. They just assume they know. And that is just a terrible way to go about accusing and attacking people. So comment below. Would you address it or would you let it slide? if someone came at you and says your faith is for people who need a crutch and can't handle life? I think that would make a really good discussion. So let's go into our final section of tonight's conversation. What else don't I know? I was scrolling through Facebook, was it this week, and a video came up and shared something that I did not know. But of course, like everything else, it sends me down the proverbial rabbit hole. This video announced that 7 Black women are running for Senate in 2026. And I was like, wow, as far as I know, that's the most ever in my lifetime that I've been aware of. And so, of course, I had to go look a little, a little further down that rabbit hole. And it came up with there are only 7 states that have ever been represented by Black senators. So chew on that one. And of the 2,000 plus members of the Senate over the life of this country, only 12 have been Black. Not counting the one who was elected but never seated back in Reconstruction. The other interesting thing that I found out was more than 8 in 10, around 86% of the women of color ever elected to Congress as a whole have been Democrats. And there's only been one Black Republican woman to serve in Congress. And the only reason I mention those kinds of things is because I am of the opinion, and we can argue about it. Well, not argue, but debate about it if you would like. That Black women, in some instances, women in general shouldn't belong to a political party because political parties have not served women, Black women in particular, but women in general. I think women need to be independent and vote based on the person, their platform, and what they're willing to do. And then if they don't follow through, we need to soldier up and vote in someone else who's going to do what we need them to do. Because I see all these up and coming Black Republican women, but I don't see any of them running for major offices. I don't see them being supported by their party to run for these major offices. I believe that women in general, and Black women in particular, should not be affiliated with any party. But again, that's a conversation that I'm open to having with anyone because I'm always learning, always growing, and I hope you are too. And I hope that these conversations and these discussions are used as learning tools or even sparks for you to go and do your own research and share that information because a lot of information nowadays is being hidden or not being documented at all. So that's it for this week's edition of Knowledge Gumbo Conversations. I'm still waffling back and forth of whether or not we're going to have conversations on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, which this year falls on Wednesdays. Mainly, because it is a family time, but I'm also considering doing it because I know there are single people out there, there are widowed women out there who don't have anyone necessarily, and maybe they need to have that conversation, even if it's as short as we have ours right now, to just know that someone is out there, that you are not alone, you are loved. You need to be reminded that you are necessary. And don't get so fixated on one thing that you can't see the overall picture of your value. So, still thinking about that. If you've got any ideas or comments about that, leave that in the comment section as well. Thank you to those who showed up tonight. Also, I want to thank those who are going to watch on replay, #ReplayGang. Comment below if you're watching this on replay. And I appreciate that a lot. So thank you for hanging out. Before you go, hit the like button, share this with someone who would appreciate the information. Head over to, Gumbo newsletter. If you're not already signed up, weekly newsletter comes out every Friday morning. It's always got some interesting tidbits and hopefully a little bit of fun from myself. So, but we do what we do, how we do it. And we will definitely see you next week. Like I said, we're still out whether Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, if we're going to do it. I'm up for it, but only if it adds value, because I'm not here for myself. I'm here to add value, to start conversations that are not being had. And hopefully, too, to get feedback and information so that I can continue to learn and we can all learn and grow together. Take care. Definitely will see you next week. Let's see, do we have it on here? Oh,
Yeah. Beat drops heavy. Heartbeat steady. Ready.
Check the mirror. See a queen in the reflection. No doubt, full steam.